make criticisms disappear, and they are not reaching your potential, except there's never gets, and then you get unstoppable.
Like, the more you learn about Paul Gilbert, the more I learn about Paul Gilbert, the more I realize he's the ultimate rock guitar player, man. It's not just like the old days where people go, oh, it's just shred music, and there's so many cool chords in there, there's so many cool harmonies and melodies. And then there's the Mr. Big days, and they go, oh, that's just 80s pop music. So it's like, okay, he's just 80s 80s shred metal, and then he's just 80s pop. Oh, that's just 80s pop metal, pop music. And then you hear his solo albums, and it's like, oh, that's just like big in Japan type, Japanese style pop, or Beatles kind of like. And then you hear this and that. Oh, that's just this. It's like you put it all together. It's like, dude, I mean, he's got a blues album that's really cool with his uncle Jimmy Kidd. Get Out of My Yard, yeah. That was his first instrumental album, I think, which was, I like that one, but I was a little disappointed, because I think his best stuff was, like, in my opinion, I mean, obviously I love the Racer X stuff, I love a lot of Mr. Big stuff, but I think his very best stuff were his quote-unquote pop albums. I mean, his solo albums, where he had, like, my favorite is Burning Organ. If you've heard that album, I recommend getting that album. It is so good. From a songwriter perspective, it's incredible. He's got solos in there in every song or so, I think. Every song has a solo, maybe. And the solos are super incredible or super melodic and interesting and are super fast. But they're in the solo section. And he's got cool little licks in between words maybe and stuff. But it's like songs with great lyrics, funny or good. When not funny, then just plain good. And it's so, like, the first one's called I Like Rock, and it's really kind of primitive compared to the others, but it's still good. The rest of the tracks are especially good. It's got my favorite drummer on it, or one of my favorite drummers, Marco Miniman. Yeah, that album was a huge influence on me. He played with Satriani for a while lately. He also was on my first album. I was listening to him in high school because of the Paul Gilbert stuff. That's how I found him, was from listening to Paul Gilbert, and I was a huge fan. And then I listened to him in person many times in LA, and I wanted him on an album. I wrote the album with him in mind for drums, so he could kind of assume that role easily. But yeah. Anyways, man. So what do you think? You have any questions? One thing I like to do is when I find somebody good, after I consume like everything I can of them, I start to find out what they like, and I try to check it out, and I try to like it. I think it's going to make life better the more I like. And if I can't, then maybe I'll revisit them in 5 years and see if I can like them then. But listening to Paul Gilbert turned me on to a lot of other people. He turned me on to, personally, when I had a lesson with him, I said, man, how did you get your own sound? He said, oh, well, first of all, go buy this album, Pat Travers, Live. And you'll see that I got my own sound by ripping everything off from him, And then other than that, he said, well, that and, like the longer you have the guitar in your hands, the more inevitable it is, He didn't say it this way, but basically the longer you stay on that path, like everybody starts off kind of in the same place, shot from the same gun, more or less, learning some of the same riffs or some of the same, whatever genre they're in, they learn the same things in that genre or this genre or whatever. But just if there's the slightest change in their interests, which there always is, then they, the further the bullets move, the farther apart they get from the others, And And yeah, so he turned me on to Pat Travers. He turned me on to he tried to turn me on to Rush, but I haven't really been able to get into them yet. But I haven't tried in a long time, so I'm gonna have to check them out again. Like Gary Moore, I found out about Gary Moore from Paul Gilbert. The ability to appreciate classic rock. I mean, I liked it when I was a kid, but not all of it. You know, I like Led Zeppelin and some Black Sabbath and stuff. He helps me like that in a way where I didn't realize how cool it was until he kind of plays it, or he illustrates how cool it is. He sort of like shows you how cool things are that you didn't realize were cool when you heard it itself. He like Keith Richards or the Rolling Stones. I always thought, oh, there's a couple cool songs, but I never heard anything in it. I especially never heard anything like musically like, wow, that guitar playing from Keith Richards. You know, that never really happened to me until then I hear him play songs and he's like, whoa, that's actually really cool. Or somehow he just makes everything cool when he plays it. I think it has a lot to do with the fact of how much he enjoys what he's doing, how much he enjoys. He's a friend of mine. I was talking to a friend about how some of the guitar heroes, I won't name names, but I mean, it's obvious to tell, they sound like they burnt out pretty hard. Like their albums aren't what they used to be. They were extremely visionary and really good. And now you listen, it's just kind of guitar albums. They're not like compositions that happen to be by a guitar player with lots of guitar playing. Now they're just guitar albums. And they seem like, well, I had some bills. I put out another album, you know, like they're so far into their career where they're not hungry for new ideas or whatever. And Paul Gilbert never seemed to fit this to me. He never seemed like a burnout. In fact, he's always doing new things and trying kind of new sounds. There was a few albums that sounded a little bit too close though to being like, oh, come on, man, that lick is 20 years old now. I mean, you came up with the lick, but you know, that's still 20 years old. It doesn't matter who came up with it. But there was a few moments where it was getting a little bit like that. But he's not completely. He's never really fell into that. And when he started to step his foot into that, I think it was around the G3 thing. Really amped his success up, you know. And people wanted to hear a certain thing, and I think he was kind of like, people want to hear this thing, and this is a chance for me to kind of go from being like that guitar hero that everyone recognizes at level B, and to become that guitar hero that everybody recognizes at level A. Even though I think he was always level A guitar hero, he just kind of, I don't know. It's weird. He was in #1 hit in like the world, I think, or the nation at least for a while, for maybe a week or something, above Michael Jackson and everything else. So in that way, he had a bigger success than all the other guitar heroes who had their solo instrumental rock guitar album for sale in Walmart, which is like the highest. That's the peak, you know. That's the highest. Can't get bigger than that. But that wasn't the case for him. Maybe for his band, Mr. Big, of course. But and so I think he was kind of like trying to get his solo career into the stages of where those other guys had their solo career, even though his band career was kind of a big deal. These are all just kind of perceptions I had. So then he had this phase where he got bigger again. He got bigger to everybody, not just to the people who are that deep in guitar. He kind of got bigger in the I can't think of just a more mass, I guess. Anyway, so yeah, he turned me onto a lot of stuff that he still does cool things I like all the time. I'm trying to learn from him. He does this one thing, I don't know what it is, I haven't figured it out yet, but he does like, you know, your typical like blues lick, you know? But he's found different places for it, like say, or maybe I can't do it because I don't know what he's doing exactly. But it's like, you know, like that. He does like, I don't know, he does some really sick stuff. Or one thing I picked up a long time is like, you know, which is just like so simple thing. And I learned from him a long time ago the octaves trick. You know, where you do like anything in one octave, you can do the next one. You do the next one without ever changing your shape. Or like he did this. Or any of that stuff. And so then we started doing was he started getting into a blues context and more phrasing. And so he just did like a couple notes, like from your pentatonic. and do the octaves that way. And then you move that and get that to go from here to here, you know? You know, it's just like, wow. I just find it, and then you could do like odd group, or like this, where he does that all the time when he takes your pentatonic. He add the 6 and the 9, and of course the blues note, so it becomes symmetrical. And he would, you know, he'd shred it for days, you know. So what I did with that was I figured I want to make all of them like that if I can. So I made them all 3-note per string. That's an interesting one. And then I'm there. All I had to add was the major 7th. If I took the 9 from here and did the low E string, it's the same. Took the blues note and I have it here. So I only had to add 1 note really to get 3-note per string pentatonic. It's obviously not pentatonic. And that was the major 7. And then, you know, shredding that, but then kind of taking the approach he did where he kind of got away from just a lot of notes and started handling, like, getting some phrasing. So if, like, somebody's going, this is what he does a lot. He'll play, like, a riff that's not super amazing, you know? And then he'll go, like a rhythm. And he'll be like, he'll copy the rhythm with notes. You know, and he'll kind of then imitate, so he tries to find rhythmic ideas phrasing wise. And then I just do permutations of those 3 notes, like if I got 3 notes per string. So maybe I would do like, I added 1 note there, but so I'd be like, I started, because I got interested in jazz, it gave me access to a lot of other notes. So then I know I could go. Actually, that reminds me, he would do this. Like, where he would be doing Dorian, right? Because of the 13 and the minor chord. And he would take a G major, let's say, over, we're doing A minor pentatonic. So he's got these notes. And that's all it is just G Dorian, or G major. And then he'd take the blues note, you know, and add it into that. And then you could take it here on the G string, 8th fret, or here, same, on the 4th fret. And then you could have this. So you have your blues then where you play like, man, I love him, man. He's so inspiring. Oh, F. Yeah, he goes whoop, 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 whoop. Like that. Wow, man, imagine you bust that out in the blues, you get kicked out real quick. That'd be sick. I never saw him ever use it except in that one video. You know, I mean, it's just a simple thing. That's the kind of shit Steve Vai does all the time. Like, find something weird that someone hasn't done. I'll pull the whammy bar out and bounce it. Brr, brr, you know? Or, yeah, like that thing. Oops. And then just like, I don't know, it's kind of an interesting method, you know? Yeah, man, Gilbert, oh, I love that guy, man. There's a few people who make me feel like I should practice. And that's not helpful. I mean, well, should, why? You know, there's no reason why. I mean, when you think that way. Then there's people who make me feel like I want to practice. And that's why, you know, I should practice. Like Scott Henderson makes me want to practice. Paul Gilbert makes me want to practice. They're the 2 guys that come to mind. As far as like that, oh man, I want to put my hands on guitar and do something cool right now. It's those 2 guys that really do it for me, I think. other people make me want to compose, you know, or want to mix or do something. But those are just a couple guys that really make me want to do. Like Paul Gilbert can take songs like Tiny Dancer, for example, and make it like, oh wow, I didn't realize that song was so cool until he played it on guitar, you know. You can watch a video of him at Guitar Center doing a concert, and he does like a Pat Travers song, drinking, what's it called? Smoking, snort, yeah. And then he does another one. He does like The Doors, Light My Fire. He does a Johnny Cash song. But I mean, throughout his history, he did like I can't remember all the people. Donnie and Marie Osmond. He's done like the Spice Girls. I think Christina Aguilera or something. Frank Sinatra. He knows everything. Like I saw him on a game show once, where with him and Marty Friedman, where it was a Japanese thing. They had like a Powerball where they'd pull out a ball, you know, like with a number, but instead of number, it'd say a letter, and they'd have to hit a buzzer and play a song by a band of that name, you know. So it'd be like A, and you go AC/DC, and you go bah, da, you know, or it'd be like B, Black Sabbath, you know, and it's like it just consistently. Which reminds me, you know, I write a lot of that stuff off. I mean, I did until I found out about Gilbert really kind of showing me how things were cool, and since then I found all these cool riffs from those bands. Like actually a student here told me to learn this one for him. Diary of a Madman. Yeah. And those chords, some of them came really easy to me because I played them so many times. Like this one, just a diminished chord, but I know it from like a Bach tune. This is actually kind of a blues thing. And then this, which is a 9 chord. I've done that one all the time in other places. And then this one, the minor 9, I did that one. That one I got turned on to by Randy Newman. This one by Alex Makacek, just an inversion. F with a 13. And then this one, I got turned on to this one by Steve Vai. You know, like every chord I can remember who I got it from, you know. This was from a Steve Vai tune. And get this. The picking is exactly the same that Paul Gilbert used in that Racer X tune we learned. Just instead of an E major 7, or sorry, an E major add 9, it's a E minor 11. The same picking. Maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe he got it from that song, Paul. Maybe it's becomes a trope, you know, you learn enough songs, people do the same kind of things. But anyway, man, what do you think? Do you have any questions?